All right, so Netflix just recently dropped a documentary on the Manosphere called Inside the Manosphere by Louis Theroux or Theroux. I can't really be sure on how to spell his last name, but I think it's Theroux. So, in any case, this is going to be an interesting talk. I think I'm going to have a different take than what the majority of the people that are going to be speaking about this will have. And hopefully, the goal is by the end of this video to give you, I guess, a deeper, more fundamental understanding of what the Manosphere was initially versus what its current incarnation is. So Lewis interviewed 4 different representatives of the Manosphere. He had H.S. Tikitaki, Sneo, Myron Gaines, and Justin Waller, I believe. Those were the 4 chosen ones to embark on this journey, speaking on manhood, speaking on those that are. And I'll be really honest, it's a little sad to even make this video because I don't really feel that this was a proper representation of the Manosphere. Now, granted, it is what I would call a current manifestation of what the young guard is bringing to the table. But when I think of the Manosphere, when I think of the Red Pill, back in, I want to say 2017, when I first started discovering what it was in its infancy, I think that it was a lot different. And I really believe that it was sort of a missed opportunity to not interview the old guard, so to speak. You know, I much rather would have liked people that were earlier inhabitants of it. You know, for example, Rollo Tomassi, who I know will be complaining over the fact that he wasn't in the documentary, or he might not, but he does tend to get upset when he isn't the person that's there to represent it because, you know, he's done several writings and as also an author, so he's created books on this particular topic. And I feel that it was sort of a missed opportunity to have somebody like him on board. Now, I don't always agree with everything he says because no one should ever agree with everything that anyone says. But I do feel that he would have been a better representative in terms of bringing a more rational sort of perspective. I know the name of his book series is The Rational Male, which I do have the first 2 on Audible, by the way. And they're not bad books. They're definitely not bad books. But that's besides the point. So somebody like Rollo, or heck, even LFA, who originally started off sort of more on the MGTOW side, and then he slowly started kind of coming into his own. And, you know, he evolved with the times as anybody would evolve listening to this type of content. Now, it makes me sad to see people like that not represented more because, again, these were the earlier adopters of this movement or praxeology, however you want to call it. And having the young bucks are not really a good way to get your point across. Now, if you want to make it a hit piece style documentary, which a lot of the people that were on that documentary are now saying that it was a hit piece, I personally don't think it was a hit piece because Lewis is just a regular dude that asked regular questions. And because, you know, y'all had to stay in character the whole time, you know, and you couldn't actually act like a normal human being. A lot of you ended up coming across as people that are insensitive and out of touch and don't really know what's going on in the modern age, you know, and it really makes a lot of men look bad because you have to remember when the Manosphere, the Red Pill, however you want to call it, came into inception, there was a need for it. You had a lot of young men and some older men who were like disenfranchised. You know, you either went through a particularly horrible divorce that like left you with nothing, or you had a bad breakup, or your partner cheated on you, or heck, maybe you cheated on them. And you were sort of trying to understand why, right? You were trying to understand the dynamics on how men and women communicate with each other. And a lot of these men that are on the internet are also fatherless, you know? So a lot of the people that you do listen to, these content creators, you might not like it, but they do sort of function as like pseudo father figures to you. Maybe you didn't have one growing up and you might have been an only child, or you were surrounded by a bunch of women and you didn't really have like that male stern role model that was able to sort of show you the ropes, you know? So as a result, you end up lost, confused, perplexed even, and not really knowing where you belong in this world. When I see a documentary like this, it really makes me sad because all I'm seeing in this modern interpretation of the Manosphere is a bunch of young dudes that are monetizing men's pain, men's confusion, men's inability to socially interact properly with the opposite sex, or that are possibly just confused and don't really have any real direction in their lives. So you have these people that are addicted to clout, and because they're addicted, they're willing to do anything and everything in order to gain some sort of fame, some sort of notoriety where they now have a name, and they end up creating all these courses, and some of them are downright possible pyramid schemes, although I can't confirm that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that because now they are leading with money and just general style, right? Like it's all about looks maxing, getting attention, and having the bag. This is really what they're representing. And that I really felt was captured well in this documentary, because even the partners of the people that were interviewed, just by talking to them, you could see that they weren't really on board. Either the people that are being interviewed are playing a character, which is very likely, or this is who they've become and allowed themselves to be based off of this sort of metamorphosis that takes place within you when you end up getting to this point where you're believing your own hype. You don't really stop and look at things from a different perspective. And the reason a lot of these dudes felt that hit pieces were being made on them is because you sort of surround yourself in an echo chamber for so long that you start to forget how people in the real world communicate with each other. I don't really think Lewis did anything out of the ordinary. If he asked you a basic question or challenged a point you had, it's not to make you look bad, because only you can make yourself look bad if you are being given the floor and an opportunity to speak for yourself and represent your cause. You are the only one that has the ability to make yourself look like a fool if you either say something extreme that I guess the majority don't agree with, or you're just flat out coming across as nuts. Like, let's face it, some of these takes, it is what it is. And it really sucks too, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Manosphere doesn't have any valid points. They certainly do. Remember, the reason that a lot of people got into this movement and the reason that it's so popular is because of these disenfranchised men that felt that they had no voice. And when the world told them that they wouldn't listen, the Manosphere was like, come brothers, let's all talk, let's have a conversation. They started losing the plot when the new creators came out, because it stopped being about, as Rollo would like to say, making yourself your own mental point of origin, and it became something else. Now it's about clicks and clout farming and drama farming. None of it is genuine anymore. It's all fake. Simple things like learning how to change a tire, or getting yourself in better shape so that you don't have like a million illnesses that are plaguing you later on in life. Those type of things stopped being less important. Having social skills, learning how to talk to people properly, whether you're trying to court a young lady or you're just trying to make new friends that have similar interests to you. These things sort of got lost by the wayside. And it's not necessarily that the message is invalid, but rather because all of the information is now out there, you had to create something new. You had to make it so that you got the attention of other people. And the only way you were going to get the attention of other people is to be extreme, because everyone is TikTok brains nowadays. You can't sit down and really listen along form. Everybody wants snippets of the most popular talking points of whatever random content creator is creating them at that particular moment. And it's really sad, because once more, when you look at a lot of what's going on too, every creator that was there is young. These dudes are all like under 40 years old. None of them are even in their 40s. You have dudes in the main character who was Tikitaki, I believe he was like 23 or 24. This dude's, frontal lobe isn't even fully developed, but he's supposed to be like a leader of man. It's ridiculous. The kid is still young. He doesn't have the prerequisite of life experience to properly be able to guide people in a proper way. So you have a lot of brain rot that's left over. And it's not to say that he can't become wise as he gets older, but this stuff does happen through experience and through age and wisdom. You don't just wake up one day and said, hey, I figured out how to make some crypto bucks, so now I'm a leader of men and I know how to talk to you, and now you have to listen to me. You have to be put through experiences. You have to understand what a 9-to-5 grind is. You have to understand what it's like to get your heart broken and recover from it, and have a support system of people that care and cherish you, that'll like pick your broken pieces back and put them back together for you. There's a lot of things that are only learned throughout time. The pain of loss, when you lose somebody, how do you deal with that pain? Do you isolate yourself, or do you allow somebody in to sort of be your pillow when you need somebody to lay on? These are lessons that are no longer really applied or taught. Because of that, this documentary, which is just a regular guy asking these hyper successful men basic questions. This is all the documentary was. And because a lot of them couldn't answer properly, or rather didn't like the questions that were being asked, or didn't like even the most minute of pushback, now all of a sudden hit pieces were done on them. Let's be real here. There was no hit pieces done. Everything was normal. Only you can represent yourself. If anybody gets anything out of this video, I want you to understand that no one can make you look bad but yourself. Okay? That's how it's always been from the beginning of time. Sure, someone can frame you. Someone can misrepresent you to somebody that you've never even met. But if you are on the camera and your voice is being spread to millions of people that are going to watch something, who's really representing who? You're doing it to yourself. There's no amount of cutting around the corners that are going to make you seem bad, because in a documentary, you have to be mindful that hundreds of hours are being filmed. So, of course, they're only going to use the most important bits. So, as these leaders, right, should be mindful to utilize that properly. And it's really sad, too, because I don't want to talk too much individually about the documentary itself, but there was something interesting that I felt that Tikitaki said. And mind you, he was the protagonist of this documentary because he was the one that was represented the most. And Lewis asked him, you know, why don't you take your power and influence and spread more of a positive message? And Tikitaki's response to that was, well, because if I did try to be good, if I tried to tell people, hey, like, live your life in a righteous way, then I never would have gotten this popularity. And it's so sad because it's so true. And we all know it, and we all willfully ignore it. It's the same way that if you're overweight, right, you know what you have to do to lose weight. You know that you have to be at a calorie deficit towards what you're eating. You know that you have to get good rest and to go to the gym or go out for a walk, you know, take the stairs instead of the elevator, drink some water. A lot of us know what we have to do in order to get a better outcome in our lives, but we don't do it. And a lot of the time, it's not because we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the insight to do it. It's because we are too lazy to get it done. So what do? We flip our phone and we consume random brain rot throughout the course of the day. And this documentary was a perfect representation of that. I really wish that this was represented better, but you get what you pay for.